Hello. Oh, wait, I clapped by accident. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Takes, Talks, and Tangents. I am your co-host, joined by my fellow co-hosts, Dickson and Terrence. I didn't say my own name. I'm Trey. Whoops.
Hi, Trey.
That's Terrence.
No.
And that's Dickson. How's everybody doing today?
I am sleepy because we're recording this Memorial Day weekend and got a lot to do that weekend.
Yeah, I did a last-minute shoot last night. That was fun, but also I had to wake up this morning and upload all my shots for it. I was like, I didn't want to do this first thing in the morning.
You got more power than me, man. I wouldn't be able to.
Yeah,
What about
I
you,
think
Dixon? How you been this weekend?
Good. I was at a wedding yesterday, and then I slept till like 12 today, and then
Dickson was
hung
lit
out
last night.
with my nephews, and then went back to sleep
Myself down
until
a bit.
6:30.
He was lit while he was hanging out with his nephews, too.
A little bit.
That's right.
Nothing like a nice family affair.
That's right. Especially when you're lit.
I mean, that's also very true, to be honest with you.
But today we thought we'd talk about something that's a little timely, something that's getting a lot of attention, kind of across social media because Jenny Nicholson released like her yearly video now, which was a 4.5-hour pretty scathing review of the Star Wars Galactic Cruiser, which was the Star Wars hotel that Disney opened and then closed very soon after. So we figured Trey and I are both pretty big Star Wars fans. We'd talk a little bit about kind of like the fan side of things and maybe how that felt. And then we'll talk a little bit about like the business stuff that the video dove into as well. Dixon's kind of here to be like our guiding light when we start talking too much, to be like, I'll shut up and talk about things in a normal way that people who don't understand or care about this to this degree will also be involved in the conversation.
My initial thing as of right now is, within hindsight, but even like before the hindsight kicked in, my primary feelings about the Star Wars hotel were like, it's very cool in concept, but after learning how much it was to stay there, I was like, who is this for?
Oh, don't worry, Trey, we're gonna get into that. My initial thought is just theme parks are so obsessed with immersion now, which again is something that Jenny Nicholson talked about much better than we can talk about it. But the obsession with immersion ruined an idea that could have just been so easy, which was just make a Star Wars themed hotel. Just make a regular hotel that's Star Wars themed. People would have lined up to stay there. It could have been one of the higher end hotels like Animal Kingdom or the Polynesian. People still would have paid obscene amounts of money to go there and stay there, even without the quote unquote immersive experience that the Starcruiser promised.
I'm not sure if anybody, like, no matter like how affordable or unaffordable it would be, I'm not sure how into a LARPing hotel anyone would be, because like, don't get me wrong, LARPing like in concept is cool. It's something I'd like to try at some point maybe, but at the same time, you do that for like maybe like what, 3 hours at most?
Yeah.
And that's like once a month, maybe once every 2 weeks. It's not for like days on end.
Yeah. So I'm going to go a little bit into what the Galactic Starcruiser was for people listening who don't really know. And I want to like preface that by saying like, I am a big Disney person. I recognize Disney as a company like relatively evil, but fuck, I love Disney World, man. Like, I love going there. I love feeling like a kid. I love like everything that it has to offer. It reminds me of simpler times. But in this particular instance, neither my love for going to Disney or my love for Star Wars outweighs how fucking ridiculously stupid this whole concept from creation to execution was. But the Galactic Starcruiser, and Dickson, stop me and ask questions, because I'm assuming that you probably didn't care about this as much as me and Trey. So if there's like things that I can clarify better, stop me so that like we can go into it more.
Yeah, it looked like you were about to ask a question, Dickson.
Too spacey. No, I'm kidding. That's something.
Dixon hates science fiction, and I don't know.
I don't hate science fiction.
To reconcile that, our friendship.
I don't hate science fiction, but when it gets too spacey.
Dixon won't play Mass Effect. Everybody bully him in the comments.
Hold on, wait.
Comments.
I have a question.
Yeah.
And Dixon, I know this is a question I've asked you before, but I have to ask for the sake of the podcast now. What do you mean by too spacey?
He doesn't know. That's the thing that bothers me, but go ahead.
I don't know. When it gets too much into space or the space realm, and it just, I don't know.
What do you mean by too much into space? Elaborate for us.
Like when there's too many planets and stars.
But the planets are not in space.
I don't know. I just whenever it's like I like laser guns, plasma rifles. I don't know. I get a little.
That has nothing to do with space. You can have science fiction that has laser and plasma rifles that take place entirely on Earth.
Yeah, I don't know. But then there's
Were you a
stuff
fan
that's
of
not
Halo?
on it. No, but like to be
Okay.
honest, I was never really a big fan of Halo.
Okay. No. That's fair. That's fair.
Yeah,
So, can you tell
I
us some
enjoyed it,
science fiction that you do like?
Gears of
Does
War.
X-Men count as sci-fi?
I don't know. I don't know.
Wait, you said Gears of War?
Yeah, is that science fiction? No. I thought Gears of War was science fiction.
I mean,
Oh no, it definitely is. It's just that is not what I expect to hear from anyone when they're like, "Yeah, my favorite sci-fi thing is Gears of War." Like, I legitimately didn't expect that. I'm not mad at it. I just did not see that coming.
it's also
Gears
like,
is
but
sci-fi,
Gears of
right?
War falls into multiple different genres, right? Because Gears of War is also dystopian,
Yeah.
and like,
I feel like most dystopian stories now can be sci-fi just because they tend to be like so. Unless it's like a zombie dystopia, they tend to be very sci-fi based now. Of some,
yes,
or if
definitely.
not sci-fi, then I guess political. But even then, when it's politically based, it's still in the future. So
Okay, hold on. Wait. All right. So, long time ago, when I was young, my very
In a
first sci-fi
galaxy far,
game.
far away.
No. But my very first game I ever played was StarCraft. I don't know
Did
if you
that
guys
take
remember
place in
that.
space?
That was a real-time strategy. And yes, it was very spacey for me. Like there was aliens and
yeah, StarCraft 2 being like a huge hit in Korea is why StarCraft 3 got made like almost 20 years after StarCraft 2 came out.
yeah, it was just too many elements that I was just not a fan of.
Yeah.
It
So Dickson
always
hates sci-fi, and as a result, he's here to rein myself and Trey in, mostly me, because I'm gonna do an obscene amount of talking today, and I'm gonna need Dixon to break up the sound of my own voice.
Yeah, I'm
yeah.
just trying to think of any sci-fi stuff now, but please continue. Wait. Dixon,
Uh-huh.
Treasure Planet. Oh wow.
I never
Okay.
liked
All
that
right. Never
movie.
mind. All right.
Is it
Oh
because it's too
wow.
creepy?
Oh wow.
I don't know. It was I just never I don't know. I never really liked that movie.
Okay. Hold on. Last one, and then we will go on to the topic. The Iron Giant.
That's cool.
All right, there
But
we go. We got one. We got one, baby. We got one.
I like the Iron Giant. That's cool. But that was not space.
He comes
Space, right?
from where?
Oh,
That's
he comes from
the
outer
whole
space.
point is they look up and they're like,
Right.
Anyway,
I remember
on to
again now.
today's topic.
for those of us who don't know, the Disney Star Wars Galactic Starcruiser, which is the name that they call it, which is relevant because again, we talk about promotional material and that's a mouthful to say, and like Disney forces all of their influencers and bloggers to say the full title instead of just calling it the Star Wars Hotel. So they pay for positive reviews, but they make them sound disingenuous by making them say the whole name of the hotel every single time that they give a review. It's asinine. But the Galactic Starcruiser was a Star Wars themed hotel that promises like a full 2-day immersive experience. So you check in on the first day at like 10 a.m. and there is themed content taking place basically from like the time you check in to that evening, and then from the time you wake up the next morning till that evening, and then you check out on the third morning. There were character actors on site basically for the entire time. So there were a handful of characters that were there. The actors were fully in character, fully immersive the whole time. The other guests and yourself became part of, at least this is what was claimed, become part of a story where like you are an actual participant in the story. So like Trey said earlier, it's basically LARPing, which again, for anyone who doesn't know, LARP means live action role play. So you are put in a situation, you are role playing a scenario. There are actors there who are progressing the story. And so Disney made this hotel, and it was met with a lot of criticism and a lot of excitement. And when the product launched, the average cost to go, the cost quoted by Disney was like $2,000 per person, and it wound up being a lot more expensive than that if you wanted to partake in everything that it had to offer. So like people spent upwards of $3,000 to $4,000 a person for a 2-day experience. That's the first super red flag. Like imagine you're a family of 5 and your kids are like begging you to go to the Star Wars hotel, and it's like this is gonna cost us $12,000.
So, speaking of that, full disclosure, I do know of someone who took his kids to this. He's the only person I know who was able to afford it, and that's because he was a weed dealer. Continue.
But yeah, that was the first thing, and everyone was like, "This is crazy expensive."
I'm looking at the on Screen Rant. They're saying a number of guests 2 is estimated price of 5,000. A number of guests 4.
Yeah, he told me he was spending he spent like 15K just on that part of the trip. I think he said like overall he's gonna end up spending like $25,000 just taking his kids to Disney for like a week. And I was like, Jesus Christ, bro.
And like, keep
That's
in mind, this is a 2-day experience. Like,
No.
you can
No.
quantify like however much you want, like the value of having live actors on scene, which is a very hard job. Like, I don't mean to disparage at any point the people who were part of the experience itself, just the like incredibly disconnected idiots who had Disney who are like, this is a thing that people can do, pay $10,000 for a vacation with their kids. So that's the first misstep, right? Making this like so expensive that you immediately price out 70% of your market share. And then the next step is the marketing was trash. Like, they marketed this thing so poorly that people who love Star Wars didn't even want to go to it anymore. The marketing was clunky. It was...
Well, was there any advertising for it? Because I can't even recall seeing like not even commercials per se, but not like maybe internet banners or banners of any kind, billboards, like any sort of promotion.
There was a lot of promotional content in terms of like, they made promotional videos, they made promotional content in that way. A lot of it was YouTube centered, a lot of it was like specifically for the online community, which makes sense when you're talking about like something Star Wars themed. But the marketing itself, like outside of saying basically this is a 2-day fully immersive experience, you get to become part of the story, you get to do this, you get to do that. It never gave you specifics on what you were actually going to do there. Like, what does it mean to be in a fully immersive experience for 2 days? What physical things are there for you to do? What is the story? How do you become a part of the story? So
I was actually about to ask. Yeah, I was actually about to ask that specifically. Was there a story being told, or was like everybody given a specific plot line from a set of plots that were pre-written?
So there are pre-written plots. There were, from my understanding, 3 different ways you could go based off of what the decisions you made while you were on the quote-unquote ship. So there was a smuggler plotline, a First Order plotline, and like a Jedi plotline, essentially. The Jedi plotline is not really a Jedi plotline. There's like people on the ship called the Saja who like align with Jedi goals, who are like vaguely monkey, not monkey, but like monks. But yeah, so those are the 3 different plot lines that were available to you. And the whole thought process was that you were like able to talk to the character actors and have conversations with them, and you were able to do different things while you were on the ship that would influence which storyline you got. So like in scope, that's a really big thing to like have to create logistics for, right? You need to be able to talk to a character actor. That character actor needs to somehow be able to take that experience and add it to your profile and make it so that you get the correct storyline based on that. And I think that's such a large problem it's really ambitious to do it, and I just don't think they decided to put as much into it as they needed to.
So that's like next level improv then.
Yes, yeah, the actors parts of it, like, super cool. That's a super cool concept and really hard to execute. I think where they ran into problems is that like 70% of the experience was app based.
Was what? I'm sorry?
70% of the experience was like app based. So you had an app on your phone that was part of a pre-existing app that they had for like playing games in the park. And that app, like, you would scan things, you would interact with things in the environment on the ship. Not a lot of things, but some things. You would receive messages from the characters who are on the ship, kind of telling you where to go and what to do to continue your plot line. So like so much of it was app based that kind of like that experience I feel like doesn't feel you're getting the $6,000 you paid for 3 people to go there.
Well, the other problem with that too is one of the biggest draws for Disney World and Disneyland is that it's all very tangible. It's like it's literally Disney come to life, and that's why people love it so much. And like they put in all that time and effort for it to feel like its own enclosed space, like you're in a world within your own world. So the fact that so much of it actually does rely on an app kind of sounds incredibly underwhelming and disappointing, to be honest.
And that's, again, we're talking about like Jenny Nicholson's response to it, because this video has gotten so much attention, rightfully so. Like, she did an outstanding job kind of going through her experience and the history of the hotel and everything.
So she
But
went.
like, she went and she kind of details her experience with everything that happened in the hotel. So like, the app didn't really work well for her and her sister, who she went with. They got put on a plot line that they were not trying to get. The app was saying they were familiar with characters who they hadn't spoken to, and were unfamiliar with characters who they'd gone out of their way to speak to. So like, clearly the app was not working well for everyone. That being said, like, tons of people have come out and said, I had a great experience there, but you can't have someone who it doesn't work for when they're paying $2,500 to $4,000 per person.
Right. There can't be room for error.
Right. Like, you can't just be like, sorry that you paid that much money, but it didn't work this time. Our bad. So like, that's where like, with the price point being that high, there's literally zero margin for error. And if anyone has a bad experience for that price point, you're insane. Like, you can't do that. So that was part of, I think, why it suffered, particularly for her experience, and probably for other people's as well. I think it's safe to assume is that the app really didn't seem to be effective at keeping track of what it was supposed to keep track of.
I guess it makes sense to shutting it down instead of trying to make it work, just because after a certain point, I guess it starts harming the brand more than it's helping.
And that's the other part of it. Like, they really, really back themselves into a corner, right? Because this is a 2-day experience, so you can only have groups of people in the hotel at one time, right? You have to be with one group for 2 days in order for your experience and your story to play out. And then the next group has to come in for their 2 days. So you're kind of locked into the same amount of people at the hotel per time. And so because of that, they built a smaller hotel. The hotel didn't have a ton of space. And then when it became apparent that like, this wasn't going to be a successful venture, they couldn't then pivot to something else that would be more sustainable and be more like financially sound, because the capacity was so low that it wouldn't be a really good functioning regular hotel.
So there was a small hotel, like,
yeah, I think the capacity was 500. Yes,
500,
which makes sense when like you need it to be one group contained over a course of 2 days. But the reason they couldn't pivot was because the hotel wasn't made to be a regular hotel, and on top of that, they built it in a back lot, so like it wasn't easily accessible for people to get to, and it was in a place where like they had not done their like whole beautification process, because on top of everything else, the hotel had no windows.
Yes, I did know that there were no windows. They were all LCD screens and OLED screens that were constantly projecting and showing images and whatnot. And like, a lot of this sounds to me like, at what point do you need to make the decision of what's more important to you? Make like having a great experience that people will like actually be invested in and care about, or running a profitable business, because like, having a hotel be that expensive with only a capacity of 500 is not really all that business savvy.
And I think like the problem that we ran into here is like, Disney is so high on their own brand that it feels like they almost feel like they can't fail. They can't make a mistake. And like, this whole project just reeks of so much hubris that like...
Well, that's the biggest Hollywood issue in general now, too, is that like, they think a lot of their projects are just too big to fail, when it's the exact opposite. Like, any really comic book movie budget now, like, you're like, where's all this money going to? Like, last year, like, I have no problem with that movie. I thought it was a perfectly enjoyable, fun movie. But at the same time, it's the most expensive movie per minute ever made, less than 2 hours, but it cost $200 million to make, and didn't even make $100 million, I don't think. And it's the same thing with like Ant-Man and Quantumania. That movie ended up losing money, even though it did okay. Like, everybody knows about the Flash and everything like that, so it's kind of just like, you can't keep saying stuff's too big to fail when like your biggest projects are now your biggest and most public failures.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a trend that we've seen a lot with like, it's corporate greed. Like, Disney for years has been offering less for more money. They've taken away aspects of vacationing there that were free, like transport from the airport, like fast passes, like tons of different things we can get into the nitty gritty. But they've been slowly taking away things that were given for free and putting them behind a paywall. And so now you pay more to get less from them. And it's a trend that you see all the time when the primary goal of a company is to make money and nothing else. And diluting your experience, diluting your brand power, diluting your customer experience and satisfaction to make money is not a sustainable business practice. And so I just think that, like, again, this opinion that like we cannot fail, we are so successful that everything we do is going to be successful, that kind of just hubris is really what went into this project failing.
I guess then a good follow-up question is, do you think they actually learned or will learn anything from this? Or do you think there's just too much hubris there for them to understand the mistake that was made and to understand ways they could potentially in the future improve upon this experience to try it again in a different way? Because having a hotel where you're immersed within a specific world under the Disney umbrella is cool in theory, but I think having it be one specific umbrella isn't necessarily the go-to thing, where maybe it should be more like, I guess I haven't watched that movie yet, but Wish, I hear, is essentially like Disney's attempt at a multiverse thing. So honestly, I guess Dickson, I guess what I'm getting at is, when is Disney making a Kingdom Hearts hotel? Because that's essentially like what everyone's building up to now, right? Is that they want some version of a multiverse where like they can have a hub and profit off of that for forever. So like, do you think that would be the next logical step as far as like a hotel with like an attached experience goes, or do you think it's going to be more like going back to what we had in the 90s where it's just like a themed hotel, like the Nickelodeon hotel in Florida and stuff like that?
I don't know. I mean, are they gonna make it like a combined immerse thing? You know, I mean, what direction would you really go with that? I mean, there's already a Kingdom Hearts hotel in Japan, I believe.
I absolutely believe that. And like, the only reason why I said Kingdom Hearts is just because the way that they set that up, it's, again, that's literally every property Disney owns now. Like, Terrence, you were the one who pointed it out to me that like Star Wars is in the Kingdom Hearts 4 trailer. So like, in theory, like, you could, if you just made a Kingdom Hearts themed, you just have like people staying are key bearers, because anybody can be a key bearer now. You get it like a Keyblade, you get like a specific set of like tasks, missions, or whatever within a specific Disney world, whether it be Star Wars, Marvel, anything. Mulan is a world in Kingdom Hearts, Lion King, all that. Yeah, like anything. Do you guys think that would be the next move, or do you think they're just going to completely abandon the concept of having, I guess, a living experience is like, I guess, a good phrase to coin for this?
Yeah, I think for now they're going to completely abandon the experience. That's my thought, but you go ahead, Dickson.
Well, so I'm looking at the little somebody TDR Explorer. It looks like he's a traveling person, and he vlogs about him. The reading off his website that the room includes decorations, 2 souvenir room keys with box, 2 souvenir sets of postcards, and 2 paper bags. But nothing about like doing a immerse Kingdom Hearts adventure, but like I wouldn't mind.
So it's
that.
more themed yeah, I was gonna say, so it sounds like more of a themed hotel where like you get goodies included in the price.
Yeah.
And I think that's what they just should have done with this, right? Like, just make a Star Wars themed hotel. All of their hotels have light theming. LARPing is a really like niche thing. LARPing is a like kind of a nerdy thing. There's not a lot of people who LARP. There's not a lot of people who want to LARP. And I think by like minimizing your customer base so much, you're doing yourself a disservice in terms of business. And I think between that and building such a small capacity hotel, that's why they felt the need to charge so much for it.
Yeah, because some people don't even like LARPing when they go to Renaissance fairs. Like the deepest some people will ever get into LARPing is playing D&D.
Yeah, and you need to create scarcity, right? Like, as much as they wanted to market it as a repeatable experience, this is not a repeatable experience. There's 3 storylines that basically end up in the same place. It's so prohibitively expensive that like people can't afford to do this multiple times. So you have to make your like customer base so small that eventually you run out, right? Like, Star Wars is huge, but LARPing isn't huge. And so your customer base is just not fully there for an experience like this, at least not yet. And I just think they jumped the gun, right? I think 10 more years of like building what they call immersive experiences, which like, I think even that is such a hard term to define. I think you give it more time for people to get invested in that sort of thing, and maybe this doesn't fail so spectacularly, but they didn't do that, right? They jumped straight into it. That it was just like, this is what we're doing. We're so confident in this, but it just feels like everything was not done the best way that it could be done, and it feels often like a cost-saving move.
Question. So this is done by the Walt Disney Imagineers, right?
Mm-hmm.
Oh wow, they were founded in
Well, that
50.
depends. Like, they build everything, but this initial idea may not have been them, because
Idea, no.
sometimes, yeah, I was gonna say, because
I don't know for sure,
sometimes,
but
yeah, a lot of the times it's more so like corporate comes up with an idea and they're like, hey, make this work. But even then, like, they do sometimes outsource to other people if the Imagineers are too busy working on something else.
I do think the execution for this was largely done by the Imagineers.
That makes sense, because I know a lot of the park itself, like Galaxy's Edge itself, is all the Imagineers, so that would make sense.
And that's part of, like, again, what Jenny Nicholson goes into in this video is that, like, this hotel promised us things that Disney promised 10 years ago would be part of Galaxy's Edge for free, like roaming droids, like interacting with characters, like a lightsaber training experience. Like, all of these were things that we were promised would be part of Galaxy's Edge with no additional cost, and now it's like you have to pay $6,000 to get these things. And it's just, it's again, it follows the trend of giving us less for more money. And it's a frustrating trend to see happen in a place that's become almost a rite of passage for families in America, especially. You have a kid and people are like, when are you taking them to Disney World, you know? And to see the cost of it just slowly rise to the point where, like, middle-class families have to put themselves into debt to get their kids there is so disheartening.
Which is crazy too, because, like, I know adults who will take, like, trips, like, at friend trips, like girls trips, guys trips, just friend trips in general to Disney, like,
Right.
and they'll go for like a weekend and then come back. They're like, yeah, that's all we could afford. I'm like, well, how could you even afford that?
I mean, again, like, me and my wife went on our honeymoon to Disney World and Universal. This is an experience that I do enjoy in spite of everything that I'm saying right now, but I also recognize how much it could be improved. I'm a big fan of critiquing the things that you like, and I think that the only thing that can do is make them better. But it's just, it's an experience that's degrading for a price point that's insane.
I also can't imagine, like, what that must have been like for people working there, because, like, again, there's no windows, you got to stay in character, and it's a hotel, so, like, you can't, if something with your system ever goes wrong, like, you got to stay in character. Like, I guess that's why I keep going back to, like, well, if they ever do this again, do you think it would be something more akin to Kingdom Hearts, where it's like, again, they rotate it weekly or monthly, and, like, you don't even have to participate in the story, but you can if you want to.
I think what's really interesting is, like, and like what you just talked about, like trying to stay in character through things. There was actually part of Jenny Nicholson's filmed experience that was like they had to show each quote unquote passenger the regular alarm that would sound in case of an emergency versus the in-theme alarm that would sound when certain plot events happened. So, like, each individual person who went had to learn the difference between these two alarms, one that meant real life emergency and one that meant, like, in story emergency.
I feel like that's such a hard thing to pull off in today's day and age, just because, especially here in America, where, like, public shootings are just a daily occurrence.
Yep.
So, like, that's such a hard thing to do, and not only just to implement within a way that makes sense within the story, but also in a way that's not going to create panic, and in a way that's, like, genuinely cool, but also safe.
Yeah. And again, we're talking about an experience here where, like, there's only one obvious exit. Obviously, there have to be, like, fire exits and things, but there's the one door that brings you in and out. That's the only exit you experience while you're there. There's a little panic room in each of the hotel rooms for people to, like, literally get inside of and close themselves in and wait for assistance in case of an emergency.
What?
Yeah, that's insane in and of itself. And they're really small hotel rooms because, again, they built a smaller building, and so they decided smaller hotel rooms would mean more guests. And then on top of that, like, they did things like in Florida, because of labor laws, you have to pay actors more money than you have to pay, like, concierge staff. So there were only really a handful of actual actors being paid at a time, and they had a max shift of 8 hours a day. So there had to be parts of the role-playing experience where there were no actors present because they needed to legally not be working for that length of time. So, like, on the second day, there's an excursion to Galaxy's Edge, which is the Star Wars part of the theme park that's in Hollywood Studios, and that excursion is just enough time to account for the time that the actors have to take off. And it just feels like they were like, oh shit, we forgot that actors can't work 12-hour days. So how do we fill in this time? We'll send them to the park. And then at the park, the only activities for them to do were to scan QR codes on boxes placed around, for which they got nothing.
This is for the guests.
Yeah.
Oh.
So you didn't get any sort of physical prizes or anything?
If you did one thing, you got a coaster from Oga's Cantina, but, like, it told you to go into Oga's Cantina and, like, find something, and you'd go and talk to the hostess and they'd be like, oh yeah, you can't actually go in if you don't have a reservation, but here's the coaster, the plastic, the little cardboard coaster. that says that you did this thing.
Wait, the food is not included?
It is included in the hotel, not in the theme park everywhere. But again, they're add-on experiences. Like, you didn't get to create a lightsaber with that experience. You didn't get a seat at their like Star Wars themed bar, which is called Oga's Cantina, with that thing. All of this you had to pay extra to do on top of the money you're spending to stay there.
And you can't build a droid either.
No.
With
And you have to fit all this in a strictly regimented time schedule that they have for story reasons. So they're only in the park for a couple of hours. So you have to try to fit any extras that you want to do in that couple of hours, or you have to go to another hotel and stay there after this experience in order to do those things.
So I guess ultimately, I know the point was just to make money, but what was like the ultimate goal with this? Because I'm not sure I understand anymore, to be honest.
I think it started out as a pure concept. I do. I think like it was like, we can do something really cool here. And then I think slowly, as higher ups get more involved, as costs raise, as the limitations become more clear, then you start cutting corners, then you start watering down the experience, then you start like, well, we can make extra money here if we cut this, if we cut that. And like, I think something that was a really pure and a really cool idea gets cut down to nothing. And I feel like that happens so much in the entertainment space in general today, because that's what this is. This is entertainment. Like, you have live actors there, but it's so comparable to a movie that experiences cuts and changes and rewrites and all of these other things in order to make it more profitable.
It's a hotel, so does the cleaning people have to be an actor?
So that's what I'm saying, right? They have to pay actors more than they have to pay hotel staff. So instead of having full actors for everything, there are a handful of actors. There's, I think, somewhere between 5 and 10 actual actors. And then the hotel staff just kind of are in character.
Are they like dressed up in costume?
They're dressed up and they'll like refer to things as credits instead of dollars. They'll say everything on theme, but they're not actors.
So it's like a low level.
Whereas there are a handful of people who are there as actors. And then like part of it is you get this big dinner performance, I believe on the first or second night, I don't remember which, where like there's a singer that's on the ship that sings for you. And you're in a crowded dining room with this, and there are some seats where you can't see things. There are some seats that are better. They allow you to pay extra to get a table with a prime view, because obviously they do. So it's just like every part of this experience, I feel like, is approached from like, how can we milk extra money out of people who are already paying an absurd amount of money?
Yeah, I mean, for the amount that they're going for, better people walk out of there with something way more. Like, better get...
Yeah, even if the product is excellent all the time, that's a crazy amount of money to pay.
Like, give me all this.
And again, like, you get like nothing physical besides a coaster.
There's really no physical aspects to it, right? Everything takes place on the app. There's obviously a gift shop where you can spend copious amounts of money on souvenirs.
Do you get a discount at the gift shop?
I don't believe so, but I can't say that with any certainty. But no, the gift shop was only available to people who booked the experience anyway. Like, no one could come in and go to that gift shop. So the gift shop was all like themed merchandise. It was all like, they sold shirts for the Halcyon, which is the name of the ship. They like, everything was fully like in world and themed like it was a gift shop on this ship that you're on.
Okay, got you. Okay.
So it had exclusive merchandise that wasn't available anywhere else that you could buy. And I'm sure there was like something small, like they got a pin or something, or like they got to keep the key. Like there was probably something like that, but no, like you didn't get a physical representation of the fact that you finished the storyline, or of the fact that like you chose this particular story over other stories, or that you scanned all the boxes there were to scan, or did all the mini games that there were to do with the quote unquote data pads in the hotel. Like there was no reward for it outside of just like, congrats, you did it.
So what's the incentives to go then, outside of like, I guess having, I don't know, man, because like, it's like I said at the top of the episode, even I, like, as a Star Wars fan, would not, I'm just like, who is this for?
I mean, I like, again, if the cost was not prohibitive, I love Star Wars. I would have tried it, because LARPing is a thing that I feel like is fun. And I love the world, but you immediately, like I said, you alienate more than half of the people who want to do this when you see what the price is.
What is I don't know, because I don't follow Star Wars like that, but what is George Lucas? How does he feel about this?
I mean, he's not involved in any of this stuff. When like he sold the rights to Disney, he's basically just like, maybe they'll talk to him as a consultant sometimes, but
That man made $4.3 billion. He don't give a damn what they do with Star
The
Wars.
hell out. Although, did you see that he said, I think just yesterday, that the unedited versions of the original trilogy will never be released again?
What?
I'm glad I have those around here somewhere.
It's interesting.
Yeah.
Were they ever...
He went back and added like CG to the original trilogy for the releases in like the late 2000s, and they have not re-released the original version since, the versions that he didn't go back and edit. But yeah, George Lucas's involvement in this, as I imagine, was almost zero, if not zero.
So this is all Disney.
The man cashed out.
Yeah, the only thing I know he was like semi-involved with recently was season 1 of Mando.
Yeah, I think they probably consult with him for some of the content, but I imagine for like a hotel like this, he wasn't involved at all.
Yeah, I doubt he would have gave a crap, to be honest with you.
No, the man got his money, rightfully so. He made a great world, and he's like, peace out.
But no, I mean, the experience. I can't justify spending that kind of money. And it doesn't give you...
Right, even if it's perfect.
I think that's why I'm just stuck on the who is this for aspect, just because I can't imagine people within a specific tax bracket. Like, I'm not saying millionaires and billionaires and rich people aren't fans of Star Wars. That's not what I'm saying at all. I don't see them wanting to spend their time at what's supposed to be a 48-hour LARPing experience, but what is essentially just a very expensive, overly theme hotel.
Yeah, I think if they had leaned more into the interactive experience, I think it would have attracted more people. I think they got caught in an in-between, right? Where it's like, we want this to appeal to hardcore fans, but we also want this to appeal to the general public. And like, you get yourself caught in this area where you're like, I don't know who I'm catering to. I don't know who this is for. I think you're right. It's like, in the need to appeal to everyone, which is a tenet of capitalism, right? You want as many people to be able to pay for your event as possible. You wind up not really making anything with a particular audience in mind.
I think that's, I guess, is essentially the problem, is that they built something for no one in particular outside of Star Wars fans, and like, even then, like, that's such a broad term in and of itself.
I hate to beat a dead horse, but just so much of it comes back to cost. Like, again, based off her experience, Jenny Nicholson went in and did the work, and like, the price of staying at this hotel was $2 per person per minute.
Per minute?
Per minute that you spend at the hotel.
Jesus
like,
Christ.
I feel like if you're paying for an experience like that, you gotta get some stuff. You gotta get, not even some stuff, you gotta get a lot of stuff.
Dog, give me at least a t-shirt and a cup. Like, come on, bro.
And also,
I don't even want that. I want the full...
Give me a fully
outfit.
immersive experience.
Give me a replica of everything Star Wars.
Or like, give me a fucking lightsaber, bro. Like, come
That's
on.
another part of it. There's some very basic lightsaber training where like, they just shoot lights at you and they calibrate it to match your lightsaber so that you can't miss deflecting the lights.
How's that fun?
It's not fun.
It's not fun.
But
Again.
that's one of the events that you go to while you're there.
And like, this
Again,
place,
who is
I
this
also-
for?
Yeah, I also feel like this place is for fun, right?
But like, you want to say this is for kids? Like, Star Wars is for kids. I love Star Wars. I recognize Star Wars is for kids. You want to say this hotel, this experience was for kids? Yeah, I'm sure kids would enjoy the hell out of doing this. But kids can't pay this. Families with kids can't pay this. So like, if your target audience is children, which is a great idea, Disney is what it's for children. That's who it's for. That's who it's targeted for. Great. Make an experience for children that's affordable for people. And I'm not saying don't make money off of it, because again, that's what Disney exists to do. That's what every corporation exists to do when you're in a capitalist society. But when you make something so prohibitively expensive, it hurts you more than it helps you, which is why the hotel closed in less than 2 years.
Less than 2 years is crazy.
I wonder if there's a chance they could reopen under less cost.
But again, part of the reason is so like, this can't function like a normal hotel.
That's why I was about to be like, what's the point? Because like Teacher said, it's not a normal hotel. So what's the point of reopening it as a normal hotel if the whole point was to have an elevated experience in the first place? And they couldn't even provide that.
Yeah, it's such a massive misstep on a thing that should have been a slam dunk, which is why I think it's gained so much kind of public recognition as such a massive failure from the start. Because people, as soon as people heard the price point, it was like, we're gonna all laugh at this now, right? Like, this isn't a cool thing anymore. This isn't a fun thing anymore.
Yeah, I remember when the price was announced, I immediately just stopped following any and all news regarding the hotel, because I can't even remember the fucking name of it. The Starliner?
Galactic Starcruiser.
See, like, this is what I'm saying. Like, as soon as I learned how much it was, I was like, fuck this.
Mm-hmm.
And that's probably how a lot of people felt.
Yeah.
Just because, again, like you keep saying, childcare is not cheap. And this is even something I talked about recently with a bunch of people where I was like, why don't movie theaters have daycares built into them where people can just pay to drop their kids off at the daycare and then go see a fucking movie? Or even have it where you can have babysitting services offered where you can pay somebody to take your kid to see a different movie while you're watching a movie. And like it's just it's these sort of things that people don't think of where like because like doing that, like if you send your kid to a private school of any sort, that's like half a year's tuition, if not a full year's tuition, going to that damn hotel.
Yeah, and again, if you have 3 kids, if you're a family of 5, like even if you somehow get the minimum quoted price, which was like $1,500 a person, if you're 5 people, you're spending $7,500. Quick math, you like that?
For something you're not even gonna have anything tangible to remember it by.
Well, no, you can just spend extra money at the gift shop. Then you got a ton of stuff.
No, the gift shop should be free. I should be able to walk.
That's what I'm saying. Like,
I want.
but like, and that's the other thing is like, if you really want to have a gift shop, have that be part of the experience where you literally earn credits that you can spend in the gift shop.
But then they don't make as much money. It's greed. It's corporate greed. That's like the two hugest culprits here are Disney is a money hungry, awful company that only thinks about how much money they can pull out of the pockets of the people that they get to come to their parks and to consume their content. That, and they're so obsessed with their own successes that they don't think they can do anything wrong.
Yeah, well, it's like I always say, pride will kill you in the end.
And like it's obviously not killing Disney. Disney's doing fine, but it definitely killed this particular venture.
Oh no, because their movies lately have been not doing great.
No,
It's
park
literally. I was gonna say, yeah, the park is literally what's keeping them afloat, which is probably why they're like, we're gonna invest $80 billion in the parks.
And you know what they're gonna do after they do that? Gonna charge more money.
I want to go to Disney in other countries.
I've heard that Disneyland Japan is actually a much better experience than Disney World is.
It's because Japan loves Disney just as much, if not more than us. I wouldn't mind going to Disney Japan, but I can't afford that. I can't even afford to go to regular Disney World or Disneyland.
I mean, it's comparable to me, right? To like the whole, again, we've talked briefly about like Taylor Swift and Ticketmaster and all that stuff. When Taylor Swift was touring the United States, there were people who paid to fly to Europe and see her there because it was cheaper to fly round trip to Europe and see a concert in Europe than it was to see the concert here because Europe has stricter regulations on what you can charge for these things.
Well, yeah, and the Black Keys also like canceled their whole tour here in America just because like they did a smaller tour over in Europe and it was more affordable, and they're like, yeah, we can't really do arenas in America anymore, so we're redoing our whole tour in America to do like smaller venues and retooling it for smaller venues now because none of our fans can afford to see us in arenas. And there's just so many artists now who are like, yeah, I don't tour anymore because I can't afford it and my fans can't afford it. And
which is insane because that used to be how artists made the bulk of their money, right? Like artists don't make anything from streaming. They make almost nothing from streaming. They make more from Apple Music than they do from Spotify, though. Just saying.
Everybody makes the most money on Tidal, though.
That's true. It's there has to be a point where we're just like enough is enough, and we can't continue to allow corporations to do this to our lives, right? Like, and Disney's a sillier example, obviously. Like, people don't need to go on this luxury vacation to Disney World. Although, again, I talked earlier about how it's like a rite of passage in America, and it really is. But like this kind of corporate greed extends everywhere. It extends to the pharmaceutical industry, to the health industry in general. It extends to every corner of American society. And it's like, when do we collectively just be like, enough is enough? I refuse to continue to let this go unchecked. And when do we start voting for candidates who are like, I'm going to regulate businesses, I'm going to stop allowing them to bury the middle class, to erase the middle class, to elevate the upper class to the point where like everyone is poor?
That'll happen when people stop defending billionaires.
Billionaires are bad people. There is not a single billionaire on this earth who is a good person. I don't care. You can call Bill Gates good all you want. He's a piece of shit too. They're all bad. They don't have your best interest at heart. They all suck. Eat the rich.
Nobody in America actually believes that part, unfortunately.
That's because they bought the lie that they can become them one day. And it's just like, you really can't.
Not unless you win the lottery.
You have hopes. Try.
That's because we've taken everything else away from like the average person, and all they can do is hope that one day somehow magically things will get better. And it's like, there's a pathway to this that exists to make things better for people, and that pathway is to stop feeding the system, stop leaning into the system, and start fighting the system.
If only. If only.
We made it from Disney to political revolution, and those are two of my biggest interests. So we're really feeding my brain today.
Well, I mean, it goes back into everything we always talk about as far as like corporate greed and everything goes, like we talked about in gaming, and it ties into this. So it's all full circle moments all the time.
Every company is a bad company. And I don't actually mean that, but I do love oversimplifying things.
That's not a wrong take, though, at least within America, just because of how our capitalism works specifically here in the United States.
In order to have rich people, you need to have poor people.
Yes.
It is not a bug in the system, it is the system.
Yes.
Like, just think about that. We've made the choice that it's okay to have people who can't eat, who can't live, who don't have homes, because we think that people need to have billions of dollars. You cannot make more money. You can't have rich people without poor people.
There's always a cap for somebody because there needs to be a cap for you to make money.
In short, stop giving your money to Disney, and that I'm telling to myself as well, even though I'm going to continue to do it. Stop giving your money to every corporation that you can afford to stop giving your money to. Obviously, continue to have your basic necessities and your comforts and luxuries, because what the hell else do we have in life? But live the revolution in your head, and eventually we'll be able to live it in real life.
Eventually. And we come together as a collective.
Everybody go buy a copy of the Socialist Manifesto and then meet us back here next week.
Any closing thoughts, feelings, arguments?
Man, just fuck capitalism. That's my closing thought on basically every day when I go to sleep. So
Seriously.
Dickson?
There's definitely things that we could work on as a society if we could convince the public. But
it is interesting how a lot of these sort of corporate failures are ultimately just reflections for where we are within our times.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like this was a good one because, like, again, we're always trying to talk about entertainment, but I feel like lately we have been finding like good angles of pointing out how the entertainment we ingest is also like kind of being brought down by the times we live in, and this is very much another example of that. So thank you for bringing up this topic, Terrence. It was actually a very good one.
And anyone who's mildly interested, please go watch Jenny Nicholson's video, because it is far more thought out, far more well researched, far funnier, and far better than anything that we can do. But we're just here to comment on things that are timely.
Yeah, and we will continue to do that as long as everybody continues to listen, which a lot of you have been doing, and we appreciate that. We appreciate all the positive feedback, all the constructive criticism. Please continue to support. Make sure you tell your friends, your family to listen. But yeah,
5-star reviews.
Yes, please keep reviewing.
Or 4 stars. I'll take 4.
Yes, subscribe.
Like and subscribe.
Add to your liked. Yes, add to your liked podcasts and all that good stuff.
Show
add to
your
your
mom,
libraries.
your dad, your grandpa. Everyone loves our rants about our current political climate, especially older people.
I'm not gonna lie, I'm actually surprised how many people actually listen to our show. So thank you, everyone. We appreciate you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Peace out, y'all.
Thank you, everybody. We have been Dickson, Terrence, and Trey. This has been Takes, Talks, and Tangents. We will see you guys on the next one.
Have a lovely day.